Welcome to the Meat and Potatoes podcast. Today we're joined by Kyle Poulin, who is the founder and CEO of Ready2Exercise. How are you?
Doing well.
So we've known each other for a long time. We did a University Venture Fund, which is now University Growth Fund. And then you went and did some iBanking,
Yep.
New York, other spots as well.
Just New York.
New York. And then you've been an entrepreneur for a while now.
Several years. Yeah.
Very cool. And we are going to talk about this new idea and company that you've spun up called Ready2Exercise. So give us your story on that.
Yeah. It actually starts with my wife. So I've been exercising pretty devotedly for the last 15 years, various bodybuilding, powerlifting stints. Always have a preference towards strength, love to lift heavy crap. And so I would train my wife on the side. So built-in personal trainer. And as I've gotten into the various companies, being an entrepreneur, that dies off. It's hard to be a consistent workout buddy when there are needs for the company, travel calls, whatever. And as I was working on and still working on another company, True Adherence, in the fit tech space as well, she just brought it up at one point, like, hey, is there a way we could make a smaller app just that way I can have you coaching me and I don't have to think about it? The point being, I get ready to exercise and you're there. And so I was like, well, maybe, but I'm full-time in this current fit tech. And then I was approached by an investment group called Rehabilitation Health. It's kind of like venture studio model where they have assets for development, advisory as you build an application, and their focus is on somebody who already has a full-time thing. And this is a part-time sort of stint. So they approached, hey, do you have an idea? And I was like, well, do you have something like this in the works? And when I pitched this quick app that would adapt based on your time constraints, where you're working out and what equipment you have access to and what your fitness goal is, they were like, yeah, we can do that. And so that's kind of how it was born. My wife instigated it, and then I was approached by an investment group that had the ability to pull it off. Been working on it since we really started to code or develop it February, and then we just launched our alpha in the middle of April. We're finishing the alpha up. Lots of positive feedback going into beta this July. So it's been a quick turnaround for an application.
All right. So usually if you're rich or well-to-do, you can have a personal trainer or even several, right? And that's good for the correct types of workouts, all of that. But it's also good for like, all right, they're going to be at the gym. Well, I better show up, right?
Yep.
And even if you're not well-to-do and you want to get in shape, you can always have a personal trainer. So I think a lot of the value of a personal trainer is like they're going to be there. I don't want to stand them up. But that does take time and commitment and scheduling and all of that. And probably there's a lot of those signups January 1st and 2nd, probably less in like July, right? So Ready2Exercise helps solve that problem. Go into a little bit more detail on how it's going to work.
So another aspect of like people get a personal trainer because they don't know what the heck they're doing, right? Like there's so many people that, how do I actually do a squat? They see some program from some Instagram influencer that they're like, I want to have a body like that person. If I just do what they do, it's going to be great. But well, you don't have the same body type, the same structure, and you need to learn how to do the movements first and to do a program that matters for you. So we just take the think work out of it at base. So you come in, you program what you want, you do some physical fitness tests that we have built into the app, answer honestly, and you get a program that's pretty much adapted to your needs and no thought. But if you show up and it's supposed to be an hour program, but you only have half an hour to work out that day, it'll actually modify it right then and there for you. So similar to what a personal trainer does, but just on the programming knowledge side, you're right on the accountability. And we're actually working on building a bridge into the app where you can have a personal trainer reach out to you through the app as well. So our algorithms are doing the base, hey, here's your program for today. But if you want that enhanced accountability, there will be that premium option at various levels to incorporate a personal trainer. So the main way we're helping is we're giving the people the knowledge of a program that's actually helping them work towards their goals. But we are trying to build in more of that accountability, some gamification to see, hey, you and I are on the app and we're friends on the app, we'll see who has the best streak of actually showing up and doing their workouts.
Yeah.
You know, it's not a comparison. You and I have different body types, different goals, So you can work towards your goal, but I can see, okay, has Garrett actually got a hot streak going on of showing up every day and actually working towards his goal? Well, I got to catch up and make sure I'm showing up as well. So we are building in that gamification and community component as well to help people out.
Very cool. And so there's lots of different reasons for working out. Some people it's just a habit. Some people want to get stronger. Some people want to look better. Some people are training for a specific type of event. Some are have to or they'll die. There's a lot. It runs the gambit.
Yep.
And so Ready2Exercise would factor in all of those, some of those.
Yeah. So we have everything right now from just general health, like you're trying to build a habit. So this is just your basic guidelines of cardio and resistance training to just be a little bit more flexible, get used to it, learning it. All the way, we just introduced a marathon training program, which, that's definitely not my forte. I hate running, but it's important to some people that, hey, I want to run the Boston Marathon. What's a good program to help me get to that? So we have an 18-week marathon training program. We do have bodybuilding, strength training, and in there are little snippets about why you're doing certain things. So I'm Coach Kyle in the app. I'll appear to explain this is how and why we're doing this approach and demystifying some of the aspects of, well, this is how you really build muscle. A lot of people think it's just lift heavier and heavier, but that's only one variable. You can lift slower, or what's called time under tension. And by keeping track of that, you're actually stimulating the muscle growth and getting the bigger muscles that you want and not risking injury by just constantly trying to lift heavier and harder.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of coaching baked into the app to educate.
Cool. And so, as you mentioned previously, life throws curveballs. If you've got it for 45 minutes or an hour, but then kids need a school run or you're on business, you can modify it to like 15, 20 minutes.
Exactly.
Keep the streak going, technically.
And that's the thing. And also, like, we do consider mental health. So one of the questions when you're going through the daily onboarding is, where's your head at? And it's either you're good to go, so just go into your workout, or you're feeling off. And that actually takes you down a different module where it's like, hey, we understand, like, life gets crazy. Sometimes you're just not in your schedule. The discipline's off for some reason. We have other options that'll keep your streak going, as you're saying, where just go out and take a walk, be in nature, or write in a gratitude journal to try and fix the headspace. Or maybe you just need the kickstart, do a quick warm up, and then reevaluate after that, or do something like yoga, change it up. If you've been doing strength training every day, hey, let's go ahead, do some yoga, work on that mobility, different headspace thing. Because if you're trying to show up physically, but you're not there mentally, it's not going to work. And quite frankly, personally, those are the times when I've been injured, is I just try and push through and I'm not there fully focused. And so we are taking that and being respectful of that for people. Or as you said, we're actually building the mommy module for anybody who's a stay-at-home mom, has a toddler, they're still trying to work out. We're actually going to be building workouts that, hey, how do you use your kid and incorporate them into the workout plan?
Very cool. And it's been a winding journey. You mentioned another company that you're working on, True Adherence. What did you learn from that process that you've incorporated into Ready2Exercise? So
True Adherence being more focused on using 3D cameras to be very personalized experience. We learned there that even with like validating and understanding what people want in the market, sometimes they're just still not fully ready for it. And so we've actually pivoted with True Adherence several times, with a more recent pivot to just focus on working with personal trainers. So True Adherence is now an assessment tool to see where is a client's mobility. A personal trainer is physically there running the test. Whereas at first we started out as being a fully autonomous 3D full feedback trainer. We've kind of gone with the whims and needs of the market as things have changed, especially due to COVID and where gyms were at, where their spending is at now. There was a totally different field pre-COVID. Now we've found our niche. We've launched into a beta with that. And so really what True Adherence taught me was be scrappy. Like, be willing to adapt and roll with the various punches that are going to come your way no matter what. And so coming into Ready2Exercise, there's just a clearer vision of, hey, let's start focused and build an initial thing, get it out there as quickly as possible, get it into the hands of people as quickly as possible, and then adapt as we go. Just really focus on iterating, because if we just got so stuck on trying to build the big holistic thing right from the get-go, we're going to get tripped up by the changing whims of the market.
Yeah. And have you guys found overall over the last couple of years more folks that want to get in shape or less?
We see that everybody wants to be involved in their health in a way, but they want it to be personal to them. Like you see these movements of different body shapes, sizes, people are their own unique genetic structure. And it's like, that's true. And the tough part is so many programs out there are just watch this video and follow along. There is zero personalization there. They just say, hey, this is a strength workout, but it's actually from a scientific perspective and what they're doing during that workout. It's not strength. It's muscle building or fat loss with weights. And so it's marketing, it's trying to get people pumped and get them involved, which is great, but it's not personalized for the various types of people out there or adaptive in any way. And so people are now demanding, hey, I want something that works for me. You know, I may be a 300-pound guy that's just trying to get walking into his life, or a professional bodybuilder that wants a change up to her regimen because she's just been doing the same thing for so long and wants a unique perspective as she's starting to age out of the bodybuilding phase and needs to learn a whole new different way for her fitness. So it's a whole gambit. Fitness needs to adapt, and it's built to adapt, but you just need the knowledge and the help to do that.
Yeah. And what do you find to be the most popular need of people in general? Like just get in better shape, or I want to look like Brad Pitt circa 1999.
That's your personal ambition there? Well, in talking to people, that's the fascinating thing is they start off with sort of this high-level initial thought of what they think fitness should be. But then as you dig into like, well, why? Why do you want to be fit? And that they'll start off with the, hey, I want to look like Brad Pitt. But in reality, it's, well, I'm a dad now, and my kids are starting to get into middle school. They're starting to get into sports, and I just want to have the energy to keep up. Like, I want to be a good dad. I want to be a coach. And it's like, well, that's not looking like Brad Pitt. You need to make sure you get out of bed in the morning and you're not having lower back pain. Yeah. That's a mobility issue. It's not a bodybuilding fat loss thing. You need endurance. So you need to work on your cardiovascular, and you need some resistance training so you can make sure everything's stable. You don't have to look in incredible shape to be considered fit. It's just more how you feel. So we work with them really to figure out what's your why? What's your why of fitness? And then you actually build a program that's more responsive, and then they can stick to it. And so over the first few years, months, as they're doing it, they stay attached. It does become the habit. So it builds a foundation for them eventually. If they want to strive for the Brad Pitt, they can move towards that because they've learned the proper behaviors and functions and built a strong base in fitness first.
Yeah. Let's do an example. Let's say somebody is relatively out of shape, and they get invited to go elk hunting almost every year. And that invitation is basically to be a Sherpa and help do the carrying out of the elk, and just not fun. And 5 minutes into the uphill climb, calves are burning, muscles in the foot are burning, everything's aching, let alone 2 days later when you're dragging it out. If somebody was in that situation, like May, June, July, they'd probably want to get in better shape. You'd have a solution for that, right?
Yeah. That would be our Build the Habit program. Just starts you out with, start with some cardio, some light resistance, simple supersets of working through a few different muscle groups with really light weights. And then it would build up over a couple of months to help be ready for a full muscular endurance, cardio endurance event like that.
Yeah. I know that example really well, by the way.
Yeah, that seemed pretty on the nose there.
Yeah. Because the other solution is to go and put on a 20-pound backpack and hike up and down the mountains, because then you know for sure. But that takes 4 hours instead of 40 minutes that you guys could help solve for.
Precisely.
And that's the personalized, this is my problem that didn't exist previously.
Yeah, and working toward an event, like I mentioned the marathon program, we're going to have sports-based programs as well. So if you're in season or out of season, it's a different workout program. For specific sports, it also differs. Swimming is way different than football or a field hockey. So there's a lot of adaptive natures that are, it's either event-based, as your example points to, or it's just lifestyle-based. So
Yeah.
we're having those different tracks in the app to meet those various needs.
Yeah. And unfortunately, as we age, goes off almost like clockwork. On the first work day after Thanksgiving, I'll talk to 5 or 6 friends, that are 30 to 50 years old, and they've played in the Turkey Bowl. All of them are injured or complaining about something. And do you find that there's a certain cadence where it's retroactive, like, I don't want that to happen again. I need to get in shape. Obviously, New Year's resolutions, but is there like a certain cadence that you guys can see in the data of like, these guys were not proactive, they are being retroactive, and both are good for you, right? But what do you do to encourage proactivity?
I mean, it's a lot of awareness, and we're obviously doing the marketing. We're starting to do more of just these free educational videos out there about, hey, here's how you prevent an ankle injury or a wrist injury as you work out, because it requires doing things that aren't cool. It's not the lifting heavy weights. It's not the sprinting and running as fast as you can. It's stabilization, just working on making sure those joints are healthy and mobile first. And so we educate our users. We're doing general public education like that, and also through our the investment through Rehabilitation Health. Their focus is on health and wellness investments. And so we have a lot of physical therapists that are on our advisory board or helping us review the app to make sure that we're keeping those principles in the app itself. So once we get people in there, we are making sure, hey, do you have something, maybe a tweak or an injury that we should know about before we jump into the program? So you select, hey, well, I just played in the Turkey Bowl, landed on my shoulder, my right shoulder's not feeling well. The app is going to adapt to focus on stabilizing that, not ask you to do anything crazy, but then help you recuperate and recover from that. And then proactively, we're just trying to get people into the app, getting them a personalized program sooner rather than later.
Yeah, very cool. And so something like this, you've got to, I believe, strategically figure out your pricing model and business model. How do you guys go about doing that?
So, fun side story, I actually taught a class at BYU, of all places, this last semester about pricing for entrepreneurs. It's called Entrepreneurial Analytics. It's a method developed by Niall Hatch, a professor in strategy in the Marriott School there. And we do a lot of surveys, demos with the MVP before we start charging a price. And there's a methodology of saying, hey, if this were available, like we're thinking of creating this, how much would you pay to have access to this for a monthly subscription? And so we're actually going through that pricing study right now, since we're moving towards the actual beta launch where we will be charging participants, to make sure that we're getting towards the right pricing, because a lot of it is just guess and check in the market. Like, I think we've all experienced it with like Netflix, Disney Plus, other subscriptions that they start out at one price and they're like, oh, well, we're underpriced. We need to start upping this to cover cost. With this method, just asking and identifying who your potential customers are beforehand, you actually have a good sense of where you should price out the gate. It's a much more in-depth part of validation, but it's the hustle. I mean, it's also like pre-sales. The good thing about doing this is you know who your customers are, and those people basically build out your beta or your first customers that are going to come into your network. So it's worth the work to do it this far in advance. Yes, it's still hypothetical because you're still in the building phase, but you just use Photoshop, Illustrator, create some nice mock-ups, send out a survey, and then do follow-on interviews. It's a pretty good methodology.
Very cool. A little bit more science than art these days.
Yes.
Gotcha. And so the hope is everyone doesn't say, I wouldn't pay anything.
They do. They're doing you a favor. You got to get out of Dodge right then.
You want it to be honest.
Yes, and you've got to filter the data to seek honesty. So you start with surveys, but surveys are always biased. There's a positivity bias. And so you eventually move to interviews with the people that say yes. You show up with a version of the app as a mock-up. Hey, I've got it. You ready to pay that $50 you said in the survey? Dude, I wouldn't pay 50 for that. I'd pay this. Okay. So now we're getting to more of the truth. So now that you said you'd pay that, here's a link. Sign up.
There you go.
You iterate on those tests until you get to the point where you're getting revenue.
Very cool. All right. So you've been through the ringer a few times, and going through the ringer involves fundraising.
Yep.
For others that are going to do this in their life or currently doing it, what advice do you have?
Just got to keep pushing forward. You're going to get tons of no's before you get a yes. So with True Adherence, we went to start raising and then COVID hit. So we knew it was not going to be a good time for a gym-based technology to be raising money. So we stepped back and did some of those validation activities. I was just talking about pricing, whatnot, but more, hey, should we even be continuing in the market right now, or are we just going to be dead in the water? But previous gym goers pre-COVID and gym owners were like, no, actually, we need this. We need this future of fitness tech. And so they galvanized us to push on. We pivoted a little bit, and actually we got into an investment pitch competition. So there's this group, Render Capital, based out of Louisville, Kentucky, that started that year when COVID kicked off, a novel way of doing their portfolio if we're going to do it pitch competition style. And so we'd been through several pitch competitions prior to that, and it was like, hey, why not? And after going through, I think it was 3 rounds of pitching, including the final round, we were one of 8 $100,000 investments. And so we got into a new network, a new group. They referred us to a bunch of people, but over the last year, we're like, okay, it's time to raise another tranche of capital for True Adherence to accelerate growth. Products much further along. We can get into a full beta. We just need the capital to do it because True Adherence was equipment intensive at the time. And so we started reaching out to a lot of fit tech investors, wellness investors, and it was definitely no after no after no. We were trying to raise $1 million, got to the point where I had verbally committed $750K if I could find a lead investor. So I was like, I was just spitting distance. There was $250 left for a lead investor. It was about the right size for a pre-seed-ish round is what we were going for. And it was just no after no after no again. And I got to the point where I'm like, are we just not heeding the signals? And so we went and did a few more validation steps with our tech out in the Bay Area with some additional gym owners, large gym chains. And they actually suggested a pivot in the product at that point to be more personal trainer focused rather than end user gym end user focused. And so we decided to make the pivot, and we've now gotten to a point where we're in an alpha with that product. And instead of trying to raise a full pre-seed round, it's let's just find angels that are actually truly inspired by and interested in fitness tech. Because this is a dig, and if investors are listening to this, I'm gonna deal with this. But I have Rehabilitation Health as a current investor in a new company, so I have a lot more confidence in this. I learned on this trip that, especially in the fitness space, most venture capitalists are super biased to their own fitness habits. And when you have a bunch of people that for the most part are type A's being VCs, they think fitness is just a given. And why, if it's not at home, it's not all these big billion-dollar companies that are out there, where is there space for other tech that could be in a gym or a different vertical? They just don't know as much as they think they do. And where we've validated and actually know and have expertise in the industry, it's different. So for the fitness industry, it's a lot harder because it's a bigger actual unknown to people. I mean, there isn't even a fitness industry. There isn't fit tech, any vertical. PitchBook, Crunchbase, you can't sort by fit tech, even though it's a multi-billion-dollar industry with tons of startups at this point. It's not its own classification, which just points there's not enough knowledge there for people to actually make decisions. So.
Yeah, that's a unique challenge. It's like pitching something in food or automobiles because everyone's an expert on fitness and cars and food, all of that.
Yeah. Somebody was a high school superhero.
Yeah. Yeah, I can kind of picture it happening, and I wasn't even there. But there are those ones where you've got two uphill battles to climb. Very cool. So you've mentioned alpha currently, and then beta summertime for.
Yeah, we're aiming for July to do the beta. So we're limiting it initially to just 100 seats. We're about 30% of the way through that. So we're still taking waitlist people at this point for the beta, and then we'll be doing a few additional tests or sub betas, like tranches of the beta, until we do the official launch of the app towards the end of the year.
Very cool. And if people want to follow it and get in on the beta, where do they go?
Our website is just Ready2Exercise. The 2 is numeric, and it's ready2exercise.com. Or social media wise, LinkedIn is where we post most of our content, actually, because we're focused on professionals being able to use the application. So we have our page there. They can follow us there and get a lot of updates.
Very cool. Well, congrats on 2 pivots and then a new baby and Ready to Exercise. And we've touched base a couple of times a year, and I've got a pretty good idea of the victories you guys have had and the struggles you guys have had, and classic entrepreneurial story. So congrats on the fact that you're still thriving.
Yeah, it's great, man. Just got to pursue the passion and make it real.
Yes, sir. All right. Thank you, Kyle. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Garrett.